Be me, 32-year-old female who has spent the last decade convinced I had everything figured out, worked my way up to senior project manager at a consulting firm through actual merit and skill. Genuinely good at my job, which is why it always frustrated me when people dismissed my observations about workplace dynamics. Been in a relationship with Sarah for almost 3 years. Met her at a networking event where we bonded over our shared frustration with how meetings always seemed to run differently when certain people led them. She was smart, successful, ran her own small marketing agency. We moved in together after 18 months because it made financial sense and things were going well. Should have seen the signs earlier, but I was too caught up in the narrative I had built in my head. Always considered myself the more practical one in the relationship. Sarah was creative and spontaneous while I handled the logistics and planning. Told myself this was just natural compatibility, different strengths complementing each other. Never occurred to me that I might be recreating patterns I spent years criticizing. The whole moving in together process was my idea. I found the apartment, negotiated with the landlord, set up the utilities, arranged the movers. Sarah was busy with a big client project, so I told her not to worry about it. I felt good to take charge, felt capable and independent. This is what partnership looks like when both people are evolved enough to move past traditional expectations, or so I thought. We never really discussed finances in detail before moving in. I made about $70,000 a year. Sarah's income fluctuated with her client load but averaged around $60,000. Seemed close enough that we should just split everything 50-50. Fair is fair. Equality means equality. This is what I always said I wanted. First month in the new place, I set up a shared spreadsheet to track expenses. Felt very adult and organized about it. Listed out rent, utilities, internet, groceries, household supplies, everything. Sent it to Sarah with a cheerful message about keeping us both accountable. She looked at it for maybe 30 seconds and said it seemed fine. Should have noticed she did not actually engage with any of the details. First few months went okay, relatively speaking. I would update the spreadsheet religiously, inputting every expense. Sarah would Venmo me her half when I sent reminders. Sometimes took a few days and a couple follow-ups, but the money always came through. Started noticing that I was the one always buying the household stuff. Toilet paper, paper towels, dish soap, laundry detergent, light bulbs. Added it all to the spreadsheet, calculated her share. She paid it without comment. I also noticed I was doing probably 70% of the actual housework. Did not track that in the spreadsheet because how do you even quantify that? Told myself it was fine. I had higher standards for cleanliness anyway. She was busy. I got home earlier most days. I might as well just do it. This is the thought pattern I fell into without even realizing it. Then came the month where everything shifted. Sarah landed a huge client, some regional restaurant chain that wanted a complete brand refresh. She was thrilled. Kept talking about how this was going to change everything for her business. I was genuinely happy for her. Suggested we go out to celebrate. We went to this nice Italian place downtown, the kind with cloth napkins and a wine list. Had a great evening. She talked about her vision for the project. I offered strategic advice. Felt like we were really building something together. Two successful women supporting each other. Bill came and sat on the table. I waited for her to reach for it since this was technically her celebration dinner. She was looking at her phone. Waited another minute. She glanced up and smiled at me, then back to her phone. Finally, I just put my card down. She said, "Thanks, babe," without looking up. Something twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it away. We got home and I added the dinner to the spreadsheet under shared expenses. Split it, 50-50 as usual. The next day, she actually looked at the spreadsheet for once. She sent me a message asking why the dinner was in there. I said it was a shared expense, like everything else. She said she thought I was treating her since I suggested it. I pointed out that I suggested it to celebrate her achievement. She said that was exactly why she assumed I was treating. We went back and forth for a bit, and she eventually paid her half, but the vibe was off. Started paying more attention after that. I noticed that Sarah never suggested going out to eat unless she was assuming I would pay. If I made it clear we were splitting it, she suddenly was not that hungry or suggested staying in. Meanwhile, I had been carefully tracking and splitting every single expense down to the cent. Brought up the housework thing one evening as casually as I could. Said I felt like I was doing more than my share of the cleaning and cooking. She got defensive immediately. Said she did plenty around the house and I just did not notice. Asked her to give me examples. She listed taking out the trash twice last week and unloading the dishwasher yesterday. I had done literally everything else, but pointing that out made me seem petty. Let it drop, but started keeping a mental tally. Yes, I know how that sounds. The mental tally made everything worse because now I could not unsee it. I deep cleaned the bathroom every week. She had not scrubbed the toilet once in 4 months. I meal planned, grocery shopped, cooked dinner 5 nights a week minimum. She would occasionally make pasta or order takeout. I did all the laundry, including hers, because she would just let it pile up. Vacuumed, dusted, cleaned the kitchen every single day. She would rinse her coffee cup if I was lucky. Tried to bring it up again more directly. Suggested we make a chore chart like roommates do. She laughed and said we were not college freshmen. Said she would try to do more, but a chart was ridiculous. Nothing changed. Started feeling resentful every time I cleaned something. Would catch myself thinking bitter thoughts while scrubbing dishes she left in the sink. This was not who I wanted to be. Had spent years listening to friends complain about their boyfriends not contributing equally. Had nodded sympathetically and agreed that weaponized incompetence was a real thing. Never imagined I would be in the exact same position. The real breaking point came 3 months after we moved in together. Sarah's big client project wrapped up, and she got paid $40,000 for 3 months of work. She was ecstatic, took a screenshot of her bank account and showed me. I was happy for her, truly. Suggested we should celebrate properly this time. She agreed enthusiastically. Started planning this whole weekend getaway thing. Found a nice bed and breakfast 2 hours away. Made reservations at a fancy restaurant. Booked a couple's massage at a spa. Sent her the details, all excited. She loved it. Said it was exactly what we needed. Then I sent her the cost breakdown. Total came to about $1,200 split between us. Her half was $600. She went quiet. Asked if we could talk about it when she got home. Came home and told me $600 was a lot to spend on one weekend. I pointed out she just made $40,000. She said that was for her business. She had to reinvest it and pay taxes. I said I understood, but $600 was not unreasonable given her recent income. She asked why I was always tracking money so carefully. Said it made her feel like I did not trust her. I was genuinely confused because I thought I was being fair and transparent. She said the spreadsheet made her feel scrutinized and judged. Said that in a real relationship, people just trusted each other, and things evened out. I asked how things would. Even out if we were not tracking them. She did not have an answer for that. We went back and forth for over an hour. She cried at one point. Said she felt like I cared more about money than our relationship. I felt like a monster, even though I knew I was being reasonable. Eventually agreed to pay for more of the weekend to keep the peace. Paid $800, she paid $4. The weekend itself was tense. Kept thinking about the extra $200 I paid. Hated myself for thinking about it, but could not stop. She seemed fine, relaxed. Enjoyed the massage and the fancy meals. Posted cute photos of us on Instagram with hearts and couple emoji. Felt like I was funding her social media content. Got back home and looked at the spreadsheet and really looked at it for the first time with clear eyes. Over the 3 months we lived together, expenses were split roughly 50-50, but that did not account for what I was contributing in time and labor. All the housework I did probably amounted to 15 or 20 hours a week. The mental load of tracking everything, planning meals, managing the household, keeping track of what we needed, what bills were due, what chores had to be done. Sarah just existed in the space I maintained. Had a disturbing realization while staring at that spreadsheet. This was exactly what I had accused others of doing for years. Acting like equal financial contribution meant equal partnership, ignoring all the invisible work that made daily life function. But I was the one doing that invisible work. I was the one carrying the mental load, and Sarah was the one benefiting from it, without acknowledgement. Tried to talk to my friend Emma about it without getting into too many details. She had always been my sounding board for relationship stuff. Told her I was feeling unappreciated and taken for granted. She asked if I had communicated clearly about my needs. I said I had tried, but it always turned into me being the bad guy. She suggested I might be. Being too rigid with the whole spreadsheet thing. Time said sometimes you have to let things be a little messy in relationships. Felt completely invalidated. This was the same friend who had spent hours venting to me about her ex-boyfriend, who never cleaned, never planned dates, never thought about household management. I had validated every single complaint. But now, when I had the same complaints, suddenly I was being too rigid. Realized she did not take it as seriously because we were both women. There was no framework in her mind for one woman taking advantage of another this way. Stopped talking to Emma about it. Things with Sarah continued to deteriorate. Started having the same fight in different variations every few weeks. But she thought I was too controlling with money. I thought she was not contributing equally. She said she did contribute, but I did not value her contributions. Asked her to specify what contributions I was not valuing. She said emotional support and pointed out she listened when I had bad days at work. I listened when she had bad days too, so that seemed like baseline relationship behavior, not some extra credit. She said I was being transactional about everything. Maybe I was, but the alternative seemed to be letting myself get taken advantage of. I had another concerning realization during one of these fights. She said I was acting like her father. Her father apparently was very controlling about money when she was growing up. She was playing the victim card by comparing me to her controlling parent, when all I wanted was basic equality and accountability. Felt the rage building but kept my voice level. And said I was sorry. She felt that way, but splitting expenses equally was not controlling. She said it was not about the money, it was about the energy I brought to it. I made her feel small and inadequate. I was making everything a bigger deal than it needed to be. Classic deflection from the actual issue. When told her I needed some space to think, stayed at my sister's place for a few days. My sister did not know Sarah well, so I could talk more freely. Laid out everything, the finances, the housework, the mental load. My sister listened, and then asked me something that hit like a truck. She said it sounded exhausting, and asked why I was staying. I did not have a good answer. Thought about all the reasons. We had built a life together. I loved her. Relationships take work. My sister just looked at me and said that it should not be only me doing the work. Went back to the apartment to find Sarah had not done dishes the entire time I was gone. Sink was full. Trash was overflowing. Her laundry was in a pile on the bedroom floor. She hugged me and said she missed me. I looked around at the mess and felt nothing but exhaustion. That night I suggested couples therapy. She got upset and said therapy was for people who had serious problems. We just needed to communicate better. I said therapy could help us communicate better. She reluctantly agreed, but I could tell she thought I was overreacting. Found a therapist who could see us within 2 weeks. Used that time to document everything in a new spreadsheet. Every expense, every chore, every household task, every instance of planning or mental labor. I know how it sounds. Needed to see it laid out, objectively. The data was damning. I was contributing roughly 65% of our combined income when factoring in the hours I worked versus her flexible schedule. I was doing at minimum 75% of household labor. I carried 100% of the mental load for our shared life. Sarah coasted on my effort while complaining that I was too intense about everything. First therapy session was interesting. Therapist was a middle-aged woman with a calm demeanor. Asked us each to describe what brought us in. Sarah went first, said she felt like I was too focused on keeping score, said she wanted us to be more relaxed and trusting with each other. Made it sound like I was the problem for wanting accountability. My turn, I laid out the situation as factually as possible, described the financial split, the housework disparity, the mental load imbalance. Tried to keep emotion out of it and just present the reality. Therapist asked Sarah how she felt hearing my perspective. Sarah said she did not realize I was keeping track of everything so carefully. Said it made her sad that I felt that way. Notice, she said, that I felt that way, not that she was sorry for the imbalance. Therapist asked if the imbalance I described was accurate. Sarah hesitated, and then said she guessed so, but she did not think of it that way. She just thought we each did what we were good at. I apparently was good at organizing and cleaning, so I did that. She was good at creative thinking and bringing spontaneity to the relationship. Therapist asked how spontaneity paid the rent. Sarah did not appreciate that. Session ended with homework too. Each write down our expectations for the relationship. Drove home in silence. That night Sarah tried to initiate sex. I was not in the mood. She got hurt and said I was withholding affection. I said I was tired from doing all the dinner dishes alone while she watched Netflix. She accused me of punishing her. Slept in separate rooms. Started thinking about all the conversations I had with other people over the years. How I always had such clear opinions about relationship dynamics. How I could immediately identify unfair patterns. Had assumed that being with a woman would mean automatic equality. We both understood the struggles. We both wanted the same things. Or so I thought. But Sarah had simply stepped into a role. The role of the person who does less and expects more. and I had stepped into the complementary role without realizing it, because someone has to keep the household running. Someone has to think about whether we need groceries. Someone has to notice the bathroom is dirty. And if one person will not do it, the other person either does it or lives in dysfunction. Those were the only two options. Second therapy session, Sarah came with her homework. She had written maybe half a page about wanting to feel more appreciated and less judged. I had written 3 pages with specific, actionable expectations, equal division of household labor with a rotating chore chart, transparent financial tracking with equal contribution to shared expenses, equal participation in household management and planning. Therapist read both and asked Sarah what she thought of my expectations. Sarah said they seemed reasonable in theory, but she worried about the execution, said she was concerned I would use the chore chart to make her feel bad. I asked how doing her share of chores would make her feel bad. She said it was the way I would bring it up. Therapist asked her to be specific. Sarah could not give specific examples, just kept saying I had a tone sometimes. Therapist then did something that surprised me. Asked Sarah directly what she contributed to the relationship that balanced out what I contributed. Sarah looked stunned, started talking about emotional support again. Therapist gently pointed out that emotional support should be mutual in a healthy relationship. Asked if there was something else, some contribution I was not acknowledging. Sarah got teary and said she felt attacked. I felt a grim satisfaction that I immediately felt guilty about. Therapist was just asking the same questions I had been asking, but coming from a neutral third party, Sarah could not deflect as easily. Session ended with a plan to implement the chore chart for 2 weeks and check back in. Those 2 weeks were a nightmare. I made the chart, divided everything fairly. Sarah agreed to it. The first few days, she actually did her assigned chores, but did them badly in a way that felt intentional. Loaded the dishwasher so poorly that things did not get clean. Folded laundry and left it in the basket instead of putting it away. Wiped down counters but did not move anything, so just cleaned around objects. Classic weaponized incompetence. The same thing I had identified in so many other relationships. Except it was my girlfriend doing it to me. Called her out on it as calmly as I could. She said she did not know I had such specific standards. I said putting dishes fully in the dishwasher was not a specific standard, it was basic functionality. She accused me of nitpicking. We fought. She cried. I felt like the bad guy again. Started doing her chores myself because it was easier than the conflict. She immediately realized that was exactly what she wanted. Stopped myself mid-bathroom scrub, left her chores undone. She did not do them. We lived with a dirty bathroom and unfolded laundry for 4 days. It bothered me way more than it bothered her. That was the problem in a nutshell. My threshold for disorder was lower, so I always broke first. She could outweight me every single time. Third therapy session, I was at the end of my rope. Told the therapist the chore chart failed because Sarah would not do the chores properly. Sarah said she did do them, I just had unrealistic standards. Therapist asked to see the chore chart. Looked it over and said the standards seemed normal. Asked Sarah why she thought they were unrealistic. Sarah got defensive and said she was doing her best. Therapist asked if she was actually doing her best or if she was resisting the structure. That question hung in the air. Sarah did not answer. I suddenly felt very tired. Realized I had been having the same fight for months in different forms. Sarah did not want equal partnership. She wanted the benefits of my partnership without the responsibilities. And every time I tried to establish boundaries or expectations, I became the unreasonable one. Told the therapist I did not think this was working. Sarah looked panicked and asked what I meant. I said, I meant us, the relationship, all of it. She started crying and said I was giving up. I said I had been doing all the work for months and I was exhausted. Therapist asked if I was sure. Told her I had never been more sure of anything. Sarah begged me to reconsider. Promised she would do better. I had heard that before. Told her I was done. Moved out 2 weeks later. Sarah tried everything to get me to stay. Suddenly, she was doing all the chores without being asked. Offered to pay more rent. Sent long emotional texts about how much she loved me. But I could see it for what it was. A temporary performance to avoid consequences. The same thing would happen again once she felt secure. Got my own place, studio apartment, small but mine. First night there, I sat on my floor eating takeout. Place was empty except for an air mattress and some boxes. I felt more peaceful than I had in months. No one else's mess to clean. No one else's share to calculate and chase down. No one to make me feel unreasonable for having basic expectations. Few weeks later, I was getting coffee and ran into Sebastian, guy I knew from work. We had collaborated on a few projects. He asked how I was doing, and I gave the standard fine response. He said he heard Sarah and I split up through mutual friends, offered condolences. I said it was for the best. He made a comment about how relationships are hard. I agreed. Then he said something that stopped me cold. Said his divorce a few years back came down to similar stuff. He was tired of being the only one who cared about keeping their lives organized. His ex-wife spent money they did not have, and he was always the bad guy for bringing it up. Did all the housework because she would not. Finally left when he realized she was never going to change. He said, now he gets why some men just walk away from relationships without looking back. Sometimes the exhaustion of being the responsible one outweighs everything else. I stood there with my coffee getting cold, listening to this man describe my exact experience. The experience I had spent years telling myself was unique to women dealing with men. Asked him how he dealt with people judging him for leaving. He said his ex told everyone he abandoned her out of nowhere, that he gave up on their marriage over small stuff. His own mother took his ex-wife's side at first, but he just focused on building his own life, and eventually people saw the pattern. She had the same issues with her next boyfriend, and the one after that. Some people just want the benefits without the work. We talked for almost an hour. He told me about his dating life now, how he was very upfront about expectations, and said he would rather be alone than go through that again. I understood completely. Walked home thinking about all my previous conversations about relationship dynamics, how confident I had been in my analysis, how certain that the problem was always gendered in a specific way, had built an entire worldview around that certainty. Turns out the problem was not men. The problem was people who take advantage, and people who let themselves be taken advantage of. I had been so sure I would never be the latter, but I walked right into it because I was not watching for it from that direction. Started rebuilding my life with a lot more humility. Still believed in equality and fair treatment, but recognized that those things were not guaranteed by any particular demographic, had to be actively chosen and maintained by both people. Sarah texted me a few months later, said she was in a new relationship and finally understood what I was talking about. Her new girlfriend was apparently very type A about finances and housework. Sarah found it exhausting and did not respond to that text. She made her choice repeatedly when we were together. Her suddenly understanding when she was on the receiving end was not my problem. Ran into Emma again at a mutual friend's birthday party. She asked how I was doing post-breakup. I said I was doing well, she said. She always thought Sarah and I would make it seemed like such a good match. I asked her if she remembered our conversation when I was having trouble. She looked uncomfortable and said, sort of. I told her I thought about that conversation a lot, how she told me I was being too rigid. But if I had been a woman complaining about a man, she would have told me to leave immediately. She started to protest. I cut her off gently and said it was okay. I had the same blind spot. We both assumed that certain dynamics only went one way. Learned the hard way that was not true. But she did not know what to say to that. I dropped it and got another drink. Year later now, and I am still single. Dated a few people casually, but nothing serious. Much more aware of patterns now. Watch how people handle shared expenses on early dates. Notice who plans, who suggests, who assumes. Had coffee with a woman who seemed great on paper. Successful, intelligent, interesting. She suggested the coffee shop. Bill came and she did not move. I waited. She looked at me expectantly. I asked if we should split it. She looked surprised and said she thought I would get it. I asked why she thought that. She said, I suggested we meet up. I pointed out she suggested the location. She laughed like I was joking. I was not joking. We split it and there was no second date. She texted a mutual friend that I was cheap. Did not care. My bank account and my peace of mind were worth more than her approval. Thought about Sarah sometimes. Wondered if she ever really understood, or if she just found someone more willing to carry her. I thought about all the conversations I would have now, with friends complaining about their partners, how I would listen differently, ask different questions, not assume I knew the dynamic based on the genders involved. Met someone recently who might be different. Her name is Alex. She is an accountant. We met at a networking thing and started talking about project management. She mentioned she used spreadsheets for everything, including her personal life. I laughed and said I did too. We compared tracking methods like other people compare favorite movies. Went to dinner, and when the bill came, she immediately said we should split it. Did not wait for me to suggest it. Just assumed equal contribution. We have been on 4 dates now. She noticed I cleaned up after we cooked together and immediately started helping. Did not need to be asked. Just saw something that needed doing and did it. We were talking about our exes last night. She told me about her previous relationship, said her ex never wanted to talk about money, thought it was unromantic to discuss finances. Alex ended up paying for most things by default, realized after 2 years that she had subsidized her ex's entire lifestyle. Her ex acted blindsided when Alex brought it up. It said she was being materialistic. Alex left, and her ex told everyone Alex was cold and transactional. I understood completely. Told her about Sarah, about the spreadsheet and the chore chart and the therapy, about feeling like I was going crazy for wanting basic equality. She nodded through the whole thing, said she dealt with the exact same thing. We sat there in her apartment, 2 competent, successful women, comparing notes on being taken advantage of by people we loved. Alex said something I have been thinking about ever since. She said the hard part was not leaving. The hard part was accepting that she had ignored her own standards. She knew what she wanted and needed. But she talked herself out of those needs because she did not want to seem difficult. Ended up in a relationship where she did everything and got blamed for noticing. I told her that was exactly my experience. We made a pact that night. No more ignoring red flags. No more making excuses for people who will not meet us halfway. No more being the only adult in the relationship. Better to be alone than exhausted. Sitting here now, updating my personal spreadsheet, tracking my own expenses, my own goals, my own life. Apartment is clean because I keep it that way for myself. Budget is balanced because I am only supporting myself. Mental load is manageable because I am only managing my own life. Maybe things will work out with Alex. Maybe they will not. But I will never again let someone make me feel unreasonable for having standards. Never again let someone coast on my effort while calling me controlling. Learned that lesson the hardest way possible, by becoming everything I thought I was immune to. Turns out equality is not about who you are. It is about what you do. And some people will always choose to do less if someone else will pick up the slack, not being that someone anymore, no matter what.